We're coming, and we ain't backing down.
We don't need a bunch of cats in here looking in the mirror.
Everybody just do your job. You understand that?
Hey, will you shut up?
I'm bitterly disappointed with the officiating today.
Guys being dudes.
And they run through our like through a tin horn, man.
It just means the same amount? More?
It means less than the Big Ten, apparently.
Richard, it's time to preview the Southeastern Conference. I'm Alex Kirshner. He's Richard Johnson. These are angsty times, I think, for the type of college football fan that cares about conference supremacy in the American South. I'm not really one of those types of college football people. I don't think it means a lot about anything that the Big Ten has won the last 3 national championships, while the SEC hasn't even gotten that close.
Well, it doesn't mean anything.
I wouldn't say that it doesn't mean nothing. I wouldn't say it means nothing, but to the extent that I evaluate conferences top to bottom, I'm still pretty in on this league because of how much better the bottom of it is than any other.
The SEC is going to be, I think they're going to be all right. I think the pals, the friends in Birmingham are going to be all right. They're going to just make it. I think that as conferences have become sea to shining sea endeavors, or Atlantic Ocean to, what is it, on the Brazos River? I think it's sillier than ever, because at least when we were chanting SEC in 2008, before they even added A&M, it was the Southeast. It was a regional endeavor for the most part. The Big Ten, Penn State's a little stretching, but you know what I mean. Like the regionality was what mattered, and the regionality was what fueled, in my opinion, the passion of the chants, and that whole era when it really started, in my opinion, as the SEC rose to dominance. I think it means less and less when you add USC and Oregon to the Big Ten, and you add, Texas and Oklahoma.
The SEC, because of the Big Ten, still kind of feels geographically coherent to me. Like it's contiguous. Like it doesn't skip states, like Texas is next to Oklahoma.
Right. But it's not
Louisiana.
Southeast.
No, but it's like the greater Southeast community, if you will.
No, it's not. That is not true.
Comparatively to what the Big Ten has done, and they're the only ones that I would blame. I'm not going to blame the MAC for doing this too, because they're just playing the game that was put in front of them.
Sure.
But this has been the greatest gift that the Big Ten gave the SEC. It's that Greg Sankey can sort of with a straight face still claim that regionality is still a factor in this conference. Even though it's expansive, it's not as ridiculous as Rutgers to USC, or Rutgers to UCLA, to be more specific, because UCLA is more west than USC. USC is flyover country. It's basically Iowa City, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, that's what
Can't
Jason
see the
Aldean,
beach. Can't see the beach from USC's campus, folks.
Yeah, that's what Jason Aldean was singing about. You're right.
Yeah, it was. Richard, this is the conference preview for the SEC. This is annually one of our most popular shows. We decided to do it fairly close to the season this year so that we would catch things like fall camp injuries as best we could. We usually give this a couple days in post, but we are recording this one on August 20th. That's a Thursday. I think you'll have it out in the world by Monday. So understand that some things might change, and in post-production, maybe we'll deal with those. Maybe we won't as news develops. We do a rose, a bud, and a thorn for every team in the conference. That's a thing we are really optimistic about, a thing we are pessimistic about, and a bud, a thing that we are curious about. Think it could be good. Maybe it goes either way. It's just a point of curiosity. Richard, we go in standings order, and I did not care about divvying up tiebreakers, so it just went with how I pasted it into a Google Doc. We are going to start with the Ole Miss Rebels, who did not make the SEC championship game last year.
Yeah,
but
I
did
was
have an excellent season.
Confused about that when I opened this up.
Well, I thought you would like that because you insist that we don't recognize tiebreakers here.
Yes, I agree with that, but Alabama played in the SEC championship game.
But I don't think you understand how literally I mean standings order. I mean, if you go to the ESPN.com college football standings page, Ole Miss is the first team listed of the 4 7-1 teams for whatever reason. I don't know why. And that is literally the order that we're going in. is the one that you will see if you go to the ESPN standings page. You're the one who says we're not going to be slaves to tiebreakers.
I agree with the assessment, but I just think that it was applied incorrectly here. I'm trying to. Ole Miss is. See, you did this incorrectly. Ole Miss is at the top of the standings page because they won 13 games.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that is why. Yeah.
Ole Miss won 13 games. Obviously, Georgia won 12, A&M 11, and Alabama. Alabama is technically fourth on ESPN's SEC standing page because they only won 11 games because they lost.
I literally just listed out the standings. That's the way we're going. Also, shout out to the SplitZoneDuo.com subscriber who pointed out that all preview season I've been saying that we do these in reverse standings order, which is not what we're doing. We're just doing them
it's standings
order. Except we're going to reverse that for the Big Ten for a reason that I will explain when we are doing that episode. But
Purdue, you're up first, baby.
Yes. That show I think will begin and end with Indiana schools. But Richard, I put Ole Miss first on the Runner show for the SEC, and you are responsible for the book report on the Rebels.
Guess it's time to find out if Pete Golding can actually coach, huh? I think that when you were around that team in December with everything that was going on, I think that Pete Golding was really insistent on keeping pretty much everything the same for obvious reasons. You'd skin the cat a certain way to have the best season in modern history. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, even though the guy left. But one of the things that he did do, and it's kind of stuck with me all summer, is that he took the basketball goal off the sideline like immediately. And I think that like signaled to me, like, we're not going to do the antics. We're not going to like throw the hands up when the receiver's wide open and Trinidad hasn't seen him yet, and we know it's going to be a touchdown. We're not going to do some of the gimmicky things that Lane did when he was here. This is a new era. So let's see if it's going to work. Ole Miss actually pulled one of the better transfers, I think, in the country, sort of depth transfers, I should say, in Mekhi Frazier at backup running back to Kewan Lacey. That's the bud here. I'm fascinated with how this is going to work. Trinidad Chandler,
Michigan State
being back, obviously, is going to be huge. Horatio Fields also comes in from Auburn at wide receiver. So I don't have a ton of questions about the offense. I guess I'm going to hand wave away the losses on defense, which is, I think, the thorn when you combine defensive coach and some pretty decent impact transfers. Like Mekhi Barrow from Florida is a good player. So Terry Perkins back, obviously, great player. Sharif Denson in from Florida, good player. Luke Farrelly in from Cal, as we know, good player, the Clemson thing. Some good players that you've brought in from transfers. So I guess we can be okay with it. I don't think Ole Miss makes the playoff this year. I think they are going to be in the borderline Texas Vandy inaugural bucket, which is inarguably good enough to make it. We can agree. But something happened during the season to impact the resume case, which is like dumb. I'm not so sure they beat Louisville week 1. Like it's.
I think it's a losable game. That's one of it. That might be the best game of week 1. By the way, it's not. They're not really sending their best in the week 1 slate this year. The scheduling
we are
does.
not. No, we are not.
We're gonna enjoy it anyway, of course, folks. But yeah, that might be the best game of week 1.
Yeah. So I am. I don't know. I don't want to throw cold water on what that was last year because it was awesome, and I'd never, I'd never say it wasn't. But as we get to and you have Pete Golding starting this era with the tools that you would say start him off on the right foot, meaning the players, at least the good players, most of them. So I don't know. I'm just kind of. It'll be the 4th or 5th best team in the SEC. Is that fair?
I think that's about where I would think they would settle. Yeah. About. And that probably means a top 15, top 18, maybe top 20 team nationally, which means don't be surprised if they're right there in the playoff race up to Egg Bowl time and have a chance on, at least on Selection Sunday or really close to Selection Sunday. I don't like that a number of their better defensive players are now not only not here, but on a team that they play in week 3.
But I will say, I do, like I said, I do think they've replaced them.
Yeah.
Some of them like for like well enough.
Yeah. I don't think that some big old collapse is coming here. That wouldn't be my prediction either this year or next year, really, for Ole Miss. I think they are a station below infrastructurally the school that their coach left for, which is why he left. But I think they're not what they used to be. I don't think that Lane Kiffin was the one thing standing between Ole Miss and doom. I think we're going to see a higher floor going forward here. Let's talk about the highest floor in the conference, the Georgia Bulldogs. My rose is, have you taken a look at their offensive line coming into this year?
Yeah, I have.
Man,
folks,
these guys.
One thing I will say is get ready to learn Zyke Helton. That is a freshman. He might be a little undersized for what you think a Georgia offensive lineman can bring to the table, but they can't shut up about this kid in Athens. And I am very, very, very intrigued about what they're going to bring to the table this year. One of the things, Alex, that I've talked about sort of all off season is this notion of the multiple tight end situation that, the Rams popularized last year. I think some NFL teams, including my Jags, have kind of aped a little bit because it was a decent tight end draft class. The Jags drafted 2 in the first, 4 rounds. I think Oklahoma is loading up in that way. And I think Georgia is too. I mean, it's probably the best tight end in the country, right? Like copy paste because we
even without Oscar Delp, they have Lawson Lucky and they have 3 or 4 more. Like it's like a 4 or 5 deep tight end room of guys that they're excited about.
And they're
talking about.
And they have like, it's optionality here too, right? It's blocking tight end. It's Elias Williams. It's who's a catching tight end, receiving tight end. Sorry, that's a better word. So they've got that going on. They're built to win games 17-6. Like it's 13 personnel, smash it up. And I regret to inform that when we talk about Georgia's ceiling, we're going to talk about the same thing again.
Indeed. We'll bud that in just a second. I will also point out that the running backs are good. Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens, plus probably more. Drew Bobo is the center. Freshman All-American Dontrell Glover playing one guard. You mentioned Helton, new guy. He's going to play guard. And
freshman, by the way. Freshman. Yeah. I want to be clear about that.
Ernest Green is going to get All-American type burn. He already is in the preseason at left tackle. Like the floor of the offense is just pretty high because they're going to run the piss out of the thing, and that's just going to happen. There's no world in which this is not a really good run game. The bud is, does Gunnar Stockton or maybe it's does Mike Bobo, looking at Gunnar Stockton, think that the middle of the field is lava?
Or the deep parts of the field.
The deep part's not Tennessee to the sideline.
You're right. So they got the job. The Tennessee game happened last year. I get it.
I would observe that they trust him on deep balls to the sideline where he can overthrow it towards the sideline and it doesn't get picked off. Sure. I think they trust him to do that. That was the critical one, the one that everyone remembers, to London Humphreys on 4th down and whatever to just about tie up that Tennessee game last year that they went on to win. But Gunnar Stockton or Mike Bobo, somebody, I don't know who it is completely afraid of him throwing to the middle of the field. And that leaves some meat on the bone when you talk about all those tight ends, Richard, that we just talked about. You're probably not going to, like, imagine if Georgia had Brock Bowers and they were like, we can't throw over the middle of the field.
Well, sure.
Like,
but
it wouldn't be a very good use of talent. So I think if we're talking about buds, like things that I'm curious about, it's, did they decide that they can throw over the middle of the field to Lawson Lucky and company?
Right, but you're talking about you're making a passing game argument. The tight end thing is not a passing game.
Well, it can
situation.
Be.
I mean, yes, but I'm not. The advantage that you gain with the tight end thing. So, okay, the advantage that you gain with the tight end thing is a personnel. It's a body type advantage with the tight ends. So, being able to
that only works if the if the offense can at least fake it that they will sometimes throw the ball to those people.
I mean, I don't know that they're even going to really try until they have to. Like, and I just, they're going to come out. They're going to try to win games a certain way. We haven't even brought up the damn defense because neither of us are ever worried about it.
No, but we'll talk about that. No, but
I mean, this is a team that I think the only transfer they brought back starting defense is the player we know is good in Khalil Barnes. Who's a corner.
Yeah.
You know,
sure.
Sure. They are going to try to control games. That is just going to be what it is. And we'll call you in December when potentially they get in something that appears like a shootout.
I don't think this is going to be the year that the Georgia wide receiver thing really changes. I don't even think it has to be.
I think it
London
might
Humphreys,
be, at least with one of them.
So one of the guys that they're excited about, I'm curious who you're talking about. Is it Taylon Taylor?
No, it's Isaiah Canyon.
Okay, so Taylon Taylor is the one that I'm interested in. He's a 5-star sophomore, or I don't know if I don't know who's a sophomore and who's a redshirt freshman.
That doesn't exist.
A 5-star second-year guy who everyone loved when he came in and didn't play much last year, but has gotten some spring, fall camp notices from the people covering that team. Like a track star, literally, like one of the great track runners in Illinois, where he came up. But you have Cannon. Okay, I mean, we've mentioned the tight ends. Zach Branch is gone. He was their best receiver in a handful of years, probably since George Pickens. But he wasn't really the deep ball guy. Like they didn't. That wasn't really a thing that happened. So who knows? Maybe something will emerge at wide receiver, but I'm not going to stake my evaluation of this team on that. I think it's more about where are they comfortable passing game wise. It's more about where are they comfortable with the quarterback throwing the ball, like which part of the fields are off limits and which are not. Thorne, Richard, could you guess which team finished dead last in the SEC in sacks last year with 20 sacks?
Like they're like sacks that they got on the opponent, you're saying?
Correct. Good sacks, defensive sacks.
The good ones. It's sort of another year where we do this thing with them also, which is they don't really ever have, besides the Jalen Walker year, like Hellcat off the edge rushers. Now, again, like they won 2 national championships without that really. Like it's not like you have to have it, but it is part of the deal with Georgia.
And they had it a little less last year. Your point is well taken that for all of the amazing defensive players that Georgia has had when they've been winning national championships, a lot of them have not been edge rushers. Like their leading sack guy in 2021 was 6.5, 2022, 4.5, 2023, 5 sacks with Jalen Walker. Like Georgia has not had an 8-sack guy since Azeez Ojulari in 2020. So yeah, like, I did look into this.
And like when I talk about this, because again, like Georgia has a level of like I'm talking about the like Hellcat, like Von Miller, like stand him up, dip under the table, get to the quarterback, end a drive player. Like that's what I'm talking about. Again, no one is saying it hasn't been good up front. It's just been a little differently composed up front, mainly in the middle, because Georgia has a might make right exercise.
This is worth talking about because when we talk about a program like Georgia, I think everyone understands that everything is relative. There aren't that many sincere thorns here. But last year, this team had 20 sacks, fewest in the SEC. The top 4 sack getters on this team, or 4 of the top 5, were off-ball linebackers or inside linebackers. It was C.J. Allen, Chris Cole, Raylan Wilson, who's back, who's a really good player, Zayden Walker. Chris Cole's back. It's like meaning that their edge rushers basically gave them nothing last year in the sack department. And it's not that they didn't generate any pressure. You were at the Sugar Bowl, like you saw it. The problem against Trinidad was it wasn't that they didn't generate pressure. And there is more to pass rushing than sacks, but it would help them a lot to get more quarterbacks on the ground with the ball in their hands this year. And I think that they think that too. They hired a new outside linebackers coach. The last guy left for the NFL, Larry Knight from Arkansas State, which just piled up sacks in this Sun Belt last year. Someone needs to start getting sacks for this defense to maximize what it can be. I cannot tell you who that's going to be. I think one interesting name who came on last year is Quintavious Johnson, who is one of those classic, like high 3-star guys that Georgia took a couple years ago. You know, they do this a lot. They do it better than, frankly, other programs in their weight class of getting guys who aren't exactly like untouted, but who are not necessarily blue chip players and making them really good. This guy, Quintavious Johnson, might be that guy this year. We'll see. But someone ideally would start getting some sacks.
Zyke Helton is that on the offensive side of the ball, to be clear. Like that example that you're giving to. Yes. They do it often. But like Jordan Davis, 3-star. Like they do it. Because it's a relatively developmental program. They'll always be sort of relatively young because you take a look at this roster, not a lot of transfers. That's just the way they do business. And business booms until it doesn't the last couple years in January, which is the thing that Georgia fans are kind of in the back of their mind pretty upset about. Maybe the front of their mind.
Yeah. CJ Allen loss, pretty big. He was the best player on the defense last year. Did a lot. Like he plays in the NFL now. I think he was a 2nd or 3rd round pick. Very rangy, athletic linebacker. I'm going to go ahead and guess that Georgia has more of those types of linebackers in the cupboard. They have the benefit of the doubt there. Mentioned Wilson, Cole still around, but you know, a couple things with the defensive front that are maybe a little bit less settled than you would expect in this program. Richard, take us to Aggie Land.
One thing I'll give A&M, good night. Just that wide receiver room is wild. Like really deep, really good. You had Isaiah Horton from Bama in the portal. It's true. I don't know if it's a like for like replacement, but Concepcion's not here. Bethel Roman's back. Graver's back. You got players at the wide receiver. My thorn is going to continue to be the quarterback in big spots because that's just a truism. He got the job done at Notre Dame last year, absolutely. But then you get into big spots against Texas. You get into big spots, Lord knows, against Miami, and the limitations are there. They just are. And now with no Colin Klein at offensive coordinator, potentially limitations even more exposed. With Mike Elko, I think both of us, you more than me, but both of us are willing to kind of trust the eval and the development of A&M. And I think I often think A&M's almost like sort of caught between what they want to be, because I think that like peak A&M, which is basically last year, you'd think is Mike Elko getting the best and developing the best out of those players that he's got. But like A&M also wants to be, because of mindset, history, etc., they want to be this like massive spender that like sits at the big boy table with Texas and Oklahoma, etc. And then they also kind of have to be that, because I was actually talking to somebody about this a couple weeks ago, and they were like, yeah, man, with A&M, if you have the same player in the portal with Texas and Texas A&M, you have to pay him more. There's a tax to go to College Station, where there is not that tax to go to Austin for some obvious reasons. And so that you have that plays into
you just go ahead. What are those obvious reasons, if you could walk that out for people?
Hard to find a place to get a haircut in College Station. And that's for people like me. And that's what I'll say. Got to hang out in Houston. And that's what I'll say. You got an offensive line here that is almost completely portal out. You got a defensive line that at least up the middle is also. So you're bringing in pieces from different places, and especially up front on offense, can they gel? Can they gel early? Because you've got a quarterback that needs to continue to develop as a passer. I think that's a fair thing to say about Marcel Reed. You also have, which is why I am personally on the we're down on A&M side of the ledger. You don't have this absolute, like, you don't have this ability to gin up momentum through the season, because last year between Notre Dame in the second week of the season and Thanksgiving weekend against Texas, they got about as good of a draw as you can expect for a new SEC team. That doesn't happen this year.
I understand why a lot of people are down on them this year because of the portal lines, especially the offensive line.
But I do trust Mike Elko to develop on the other.
That's the thing.
You
That's
know,
the thing. I think I'm going to have them where I definitely have them is in that like playoff borderlands territory. And I think that because you can't just pick the, top 8 preseason teams to be the top 8, I think I'm going to put them in on the border. It's going to be close. I just think Mike Elko is going to have a great defense. It's a little bit of blind faith because of all the portal evaluations going on, but I think it's somewhat merited blind faith that he has stood up over his first couple years in that job. And I don't think Marcel Reed has a lot more in the banana stand for us. Like I think what we see with him is what we get. What he's selling the last couple of years is what he is. I think he's a legitimately electric runner who can occasionally make wow throws, but I don't think that he's selling like the most delicious downfield passing fruit that you could imagine. I don't know why I'm sticking with this metaphor so much.
No,
but like, does
fine.
it matter with those? Like how many? He's going to have a bunch of 70-yard catch and run touchdowns to those receivers.
Yeah, it's
even if he's not an NFL player, which I don't really think he is.
I mean, they are just going to. They're going to run into the can you drive the ball 12 plays down the field when it counts with 4.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Like it's going to happen. That's the Miami thing. It was the Miami thing last year. Now it was more than that because I couldn't score for anything, but neither of them could. But yeah, I think the ceiling is not similar. Well, I would also say, I think the floor is lower for A&M. Like I had it, we did it. I did a segment on CNN on CBS the other day, and I said A&M might fall out of top 25 by the end of the season. Like, I could see that.
I'd be surprised. I also think that on the portaled line thing, which isn't great, like it's not what you want. If you were going to do that with one returning starter, you would want it to be an all-conference center, which is what they're doing. Like they have kind of the glue guy in the middle of that group, and they spend so much money, and Elko is so good at eval and development. I understand I understand your bearish case, but I think there is a justifiable reason to be up or down on these guys. Speaking of the Alabama Crimson Tide,
up.
I'm going to start with my bud. I'm not saying that this is a make or break year for Kalen DeBoer because he has an extension now after the Michigan situation and whatever else in the offseason. He has the extension. But I do think we are going to learn this year if he is in over his head or has it under control, because they really expressed with their actions, confidence in what they're doing. They kept recruiting high school at an elite level, even more than in recent years. They did not go on some portal bender like we talked about over the offseason vibe check episodes that we were doing. Ryan Grubb is back. Kane Womack is back, the two coordinators. Ryan Coleman Williams did not transfer. A lot of people, including me, thought he was going to be somewhere else this year. He did not. He's back. Ostensibly their number one receiver again, even after he fell way down the chart over the course of last season. They did not portal a quarterback. It's going to be Keelan Russell or Austin Mack. What I gather is that Russell is the more exciting.
Yeah,
because
Russell has the upside case.
Yeah,
yes.
You can certainly do more with his legs, not to a Jalen Milroe or Jalen Hurts type of level, but you can do more with his legs than you can with Austin Mack. Offers you a bit more there. We'll get to probably the big worry, which is the offensive line. They'll come up, but they didn't make massive changes there. They had one really interesting portal guy that we'll talk about. Like running back, I know they tried to get Hollywood Smothers because there was a lot of press about that. He went to Texas instead. Who's going to emerge as their star Alabama running back this year? Because no one really did last year. Yeah. I don't know if anyone could have behind that line. So they have just expressed a lot of staying the course confidence in themselves here. And we will find out whether that's justified or whether that's just desperation because they didn't have money or they didn't have ideas. My rose for this team, I'll do one quick one, offense and defense. Wideouts are going to be good. I choose to believe that what we saw last year from Ryan Coleman Williams was not the real thing. I don't know what the deal was, but I don't think it was reflective of the player he is. Lutzier Brooks came on nicely, especially in the Oklahoma game in the playoff, you'll remember. Noah Rogers is a good player. He was Ohio State. Didn't work out. NC State played really well. Now he's here. I think they're going to have downfield weapons. And I'm curious if you agree with this because it's a lot of continuity. I think the secondary is great. Like they're just going to be really hard to throw over. I don't think they're going to get out matchupped in coverage really on either side of the ball. A lot of people back. Keon Sabb and Bray Hubbard at safety, Zabian Brown, Red Morgan, Dijon Lee at cornerback. These are all people who have played. And a third rose is that the opening slate for them is pretty hospitable. East Carolina, Kentucky under new management, Florida State, which, yeah, they lost last year, but South Carolina, Mississippi State. The two most fireable coaches in the SEC rounding that out against them.
One quick thing on Noah Rogers, hurt, by the way, in early in fall camp, may be back.
Oh, good catch.
Mid-season, if not a little bit before. So just of note with that, again, I don't think it's going to be the death knell for Alabama, but it does matter. Yeah, I choose to believe Ryan Coleman Williams is going to be all right. That was something of an aberration. I think Alabama's going to be really good up front on defense. I will say
on
that.
Defense, yes, I agree.
I think that's my rose and bud. To be honest with you, I think they're going to be nasty up front on defense.
Yeah. Also, Lutzier Brooks kickoff return game, punt return game could be involved there. That was one of the areas where he was useful late last season. I think that was what he was doing mainly in the Oklahoma game. You know what the thorn is. Everyone listening to this knows what the thorn is. It will be no surprise to anybody. Offensive line, of course. It's a bad deal when you have a really bad offensive line, not just by their standards, but by SEC standards, a really bad offensive line last year. And then you lose two guys to the NFL from that offensive line, which tells you good players couldn't put together a good unit despite them. Caden Proctor, Parker Brailsford, both in the NFL, left tackle, center.
Yeah, one thing, the streets say that they've got a tight end here named Josh Ford in from Oklahoma State that the streets are saying, the streets are expressing optimism, I should say, for a little bit of a sixth offensive lineman type deal as far as that's concerned. We know that optionality with formations is something that Ryan Grubb loves to do tricky stuff. So just kind of keep that in mind when we talk about how Alabama runs the ball, can Alabama run the ball, all that type of stuff. They also upped their investment in offensive line infrastructure with coaches. They added they
fired the guy and they hired a new guy.
And then they hired an assistant. And then I think they hired another tight ends coach too, or something like that, if I recall correctly.
Maybe the most interesting transfer in the whole country this year is the Alabama center, Rayson Delgatti. He comes from FCS Cal Poly. He says he had 30 offers to go somewhere and be a team starting center this year. Went to Alabama. They are replacing, from this terrible offensive line, they're replacing an NFL center with a Cal Poly transfer. I don't think Alabama's dumb about this at all, though. Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb, trust me, they know how to evaluate really good football players from sub FBS levels.
Well, it's not even sub FBS level. I think when you compare that with general manager Courtney Morgan, if they're doing this with a guy on the West Coast, my interest is piqued significantly.
Me too. It's just a big bet. It might work. I'm not
they
saying
know. I have a trust about these guys on the West Coast. Which remember, that was the problem when they hired the guy. We were like, "How's this going to work?" Because I don't know if he knows how to do the business in the Southeast. In combination with the fact Alabama's relative money issues with the peers in its weight class, which is a different podcast for a different day, and we've done it.
Yeah. The funniest distillation of the whole doesn't know how to do it in the Southeast thing is that Alabama fans, I'm guessing probably not most of our Alabama fan listeners, but many of them are still mad that they don't practice in the worst heat of the day.
Oh, man.
I think that Alabama fans advocate more of a DJ Durkin approach to conditioning, more of a, let's say, Bear Bryant approach to conditioning.
Yeah, let's say
Bear
Bryant.
More specific.
Yes.
And there's a lot of them who are not happy that they don't practice during the hottest part of the day, which is very much a West Coast versus Southeast thing. This offensive line stunk. It was probably the chief reason, though there were a lot of reasons why the Rose Bowl happened 38-3 against Indiana.
I think yes.
And it was predictable. It was happening throughout last season. and then it led up to kind of implode on them in the worst, most public way. Big renovations, new coaching room, new coaching infrastructure, and now we have this going on. So let's see. It's a big bet, particularly at center.
To Austin we go. Texas, I'm in. I'm all the way in. I'm 2 in. Like, no one to hold them, no one to fold them. I don't. Texas is going to win the national championship. They're going to win the SEC. Arch, the combination to me, Rose of Arch, Muschamp, and what they added, get them over the line. Arch, back half the season, I won't shut up about it, was what I expected him to be. Frankly, he wasn't that bad in the Ohio State game, but that's a different story for a different day. And we've done it. We've told it. I think they assessed last offseason that we've got to give this guy the toys. They went after Jaden Ball hard in the portal, didn't get him, said, all right, our consolation prize is going to be probably the 2 other best running backs in the portal, Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown. What I think they offer Texas is a level of cheap explosives that will, A, be that just as a concept on offense and just sort of a shiny thing that Sark can use in game plan around, in addition to taking some pressure off of Arch to run, keeping him more healthy, as we know he was not healthy by the end of the season last season and played more or less on one foot in the Citrus Bowl last year. At wide receiver, they went and got Cam Coleman. And I think a lot of people have forgot what Cam Coleman can do because of the Auburn of it all, which is fair. But I think when you add Cam Coleman to that room with Ryan Wingo, and I think Emmett Mosley, who's in from Stanford's okay too. I mean, if that's your wide receiver 3. Yes. If he's your wide receiver 3, okay. The Gooseby injury does not seem like it's that bad on offense. And it seems like the Western Kentucky lineman who's in here at guard, who got in late, got to Austin late, I should say, is good enough as well. So, and left guard was the thing that really sunk them last year. I mean, they had a revolving door at left guard. It was wild. So I think when you have that, you combine that with what they have on defense. They have Pitt's best player, Rasheem Piles, at linebacker, behind a defensive line that I think is going to be pretty good. We know what Colin Simmons can do. Lord knows. The only question that I have about Texas is on the back end in the secondary. And we're going to find out pretty soon, week 2, against old number 4, wearing scarlet and gray. But I think you sprinkle some Muschamp on it, on that defense, and you have something. I think Sark looked at it and said, I think Sark, and I'm pretty sure Sark has just about said this, he meddled in the defense in a way that was detrimental, or was at least too involved in the defense in a way that was detrimental. I think hiring Muschamp is he went so far as to say that, like, if we're on defense, like, Will can call a timeout if he needs to without checking with me, because I'm going to be talking with the quarterback coach and Arch. Like, I think there is going to be a locked in nature to this team. And I think they do it this year, to be honest with you. I think they do it in a chips in, all in, last dance kind of way.
I still think my thorn would be just curiosity about the offensive line. Not having much to do with the fall camp injury that doesn't seem like it's that big a deal. It's a big bet on player development for the most part, more than portal there. And it just wasn't good enough last year for them to reach the goals that we know they have. That's where I would still be looking this time around. But we'll see. I share your general optimism. I'm also going to do the Arch thing again this year. I think people mostly get that. I think there will be a bit of Arch backlash when people are doing this as the season begins, but I don't think he's going to have another year like he did last year. I don't think. It just seems unlikely to me that he's going to leave college football without having had one major boom year. See where it gets him. An exciting bit of podcast business for you, by the way. Folks, we are going into our 5th year with Nokian Tires as a sponsor of the show. We're very appreciative of that relationship. They're a big company with lots going on, including a plant in Dayton, Tennessee. And they have found time, they have found budget, they have found so many different ways to help us over the years, and we are grateful for them. But tires are weird because they are not a traditional direct-to-consumer business. We haven't loaded you up with a way to, get a discount or somehow give this show credit for generating tire sales. So we've had kind of this like impromptu system where people will just let us know basically on social media or in our annual audience surveys, hey, like I bought some Nokian tires because I heard about them on Split Zone Duo. That is no longer the only option. We are very excited that this year, this football season, Tires Easy has agreed to provide a 10% discount for Split Zone Duo listeners via the coupon code SPLITZONEDUO, all caps, one word, Split Zone Duo, used in the cart on their website. You can access that if you go to a link at nokiantires.com/SZD. That is nokiantires.com/SZD. This is going to run from kickoff this season, so just inside the next couple of weeks here through December. So if you are looking for new tires, we are going to have an opportunity for you to get some at a 10% discount. Thank you very much to our partners at Nokian Tires and to Tires Easy for facilitating this.
On the other side of the Red River, Oklahoma, who I am very high on, like scary for me personally, high on.
Yeah, I'm high on them too. I've already sketched out my playoff picks and I don't have them in there, but I think that might just be out of variance. I think I like them as much as I like Texas A&M and maybe a shade more. And I think I like both of them more than Ole Miss. The rose here is that the upfront talent on defense is superb. And that's true even with R. Mason Thomas, best edge rusher from last year, gone. Like they might maybe have like slightly more of a depth question than they did last year up front, but there's still a lot here. Taylor Wine and freakish athlete, had 7 sacks, had my favorite play of last college football season where from a dead stop, he jumped over the Alabama field goal protection and blocked a kick in that game. I think about it all the time because he wasn't running into it from a stop, just jumped over some people. Runs really well, fun player. They have 2 young defensive tackles, David Stone and Jaden Jackson, who I know they are very excited about, who have come on and already earned some accolades and been these kind of mauling, plugging defensive tackles who are going to be there possibly for multiple more years. And then at linebacker, they have their top tackle guys, Kip Lewis back, Owen Heineke back. The Heineke thing is one of those sham eligibility situations, but not a quarterback, so I don't care that much. Whatever, do your thing. I just think the whole defense is going to be really good, actually, as we kind of broaden it out.
You're looking at the best defense in college football right there.
It should be. It should be very close. Yeah.
You give Brent Venables that defensive front, that ain't right. I mean, that's like that you got to go back to, was it 2019? What was the year Clemson had all 4 of those guys up front? It must have been 2019. I think it was the year 18 or 19. The year they actually won it in California, in San Francisco.
16 and 18. 18. Yeah, Christian Wilkins, Cleveland Farrell.
Yes. A
couple others. Yeah, Dexter Williams, I think.
Yes. Nasty up front.
Yeah.
I think the offense is going to be better because I think, well, first of all, John Mateer's not going to have one hand. And I'm not infatuated with John Mateer throwing the ball, but I think it's going to be good enough.
Well, he's my bud. Let's have a talk about John Mateer. I don't think we know what the real John Mateer is, even at this point in his career. He was really effective at Washington State a couple years ago with Ben Arbuckle, who's the coordinator who came here with him. Excellent first 4 games at Oklahoma. That included Michigan and Auburn, 2 teams with competitive defenses. He gets hurt. He has hand surgery. He's back playing 3 weeks later. There are no minor surgeries when you're expected to be a world-class athlete with timing and conditioning. Surgery sucks. You have to recover from it. It throws things off, especially in the middle of a football season.
It's no matter what his surgery hand, is. His throwing hand.
Had a nightmare Cotton Bowl coming back from that. Brief bounce back against South Carolina. And then basically he was mediocre the rest of the season, including when they lost to Alabama and including when they beat Alabama for that matter. So he's been doing the rounds this offseason, talking about how he's working on his footwork, his field vision, just trying to make himself a sharper quarterback. I guess we're going to find out. I don't think I'm very high on him, but I could see why someone would be, because things were going pretty well before he had surgery in the middle of the season.
Yeah, OU is I think, first of all, I think OU on the offensive line is going to be pretty good. Yeah. What I think is interesting about
they weren't last year.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think that when you look at what OU has on offense, and this is similar to the Georgia case, I just mentioned it. You've got a situation where you're going to have an optionality in formation because of the tight end room. Jason Witten, tight end coach, by the way, funny enough. You bring in Hayden Hansen from Florida, Rocky Beers from Colorado State, and Jack Van Dorsler from Tennessee. You've absolutely upset the apple cart of that tight end room. And you've also added Parker Livingston, a good depth guy at wide receiver, who Texas basically was like, I don't know, man, don't need him. Luxury player. So and Trell Harris, who I think you liked from Virginia in the wide receiver room. So I think they've made good additions. Now, can they run the ball is basically the question in the way that is necessary. But absent that, there's not a lot of holes here, to be honest with you.
It's the run game. There's a world where this team is like Alabama was like last year if they didn't figure it out. Now they might have figured it out. This is my thorn. Nobody really produced running the ball last year. Like the Jaden Ott thing got a lot of attention, but it wasn't like Torrey Blaylock or Xavier Robinson, who have had, I think, spring injuries as well, were really cooking last year either, or like Mateer for the most part was really cooking as a runner. Venables, his words, called it a pathetic run game. So you know how their fans hated the coach version of DeMarco Murray, the running backs coach? They have a new one now, Dylan McCullough, who the last couple years was coaching Ashton Genty with the Raiders, and before that, Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price with Notre Dame. So it's like kind of a sexy running back coach hire to try to figure this out. They have Jonathan Hatton, freshman running back, who sounds like he's going to get a ton of work wearing number 0. But I think some of this probably comes down to line play, and it wasn't very good last year. You're right. They added a lot of guys, but it's also like Bama in that they were bad, and then they had Fabechi Wiwu, one of their offensive linemen, become a 4th-round NFL pick. So like they had at least one upper class guy that the league thought was good, and they couldn't build a good unit with him. It's a fair question, I think, if they're going to run the ball. I don't know. And also the schedule is still speaking of can they run the ball? How good is the offensive line? Michigan, Georgia, Texas, all in their first 5. Plus, and this sucks for them, they're going to beat New Mexico in between Michigan and UGA. But yeah, when they scheduled that game, they did not think they were going to get what they were going to get with this New Mexico. That is not a fun one for them. They're going to have to play starters for a lot of that game. It's going to be physically not an SEC game, not a Big Ten game, sure, but it's annoying. Not a cream puff. Yeah, it's not like that. So
I mentioned this on a show that we did. I think it was our Time Capsule preview show that we recorded with Stephen Godfrey earlier this week. This is an insane schedule, not necessarily in its difficulty. That's not really what I mean. Just in that it's like every week is a referendum either on Oklahoma itself or the opponent. And there's just traps all over the place. Mm-hmm. It's wild. Now
they could go 8-4 without doing anything wrong.
You want to talk about what a 9-3 playoff team looks like? It's this. If there is, and there will be a 9-3 if they stay with 12 for a long term or medium or long term, there will be a 9-3 team that makes the college football playoff. We understand that it is going to happen. This is the slate that I think could produce such a thing if they are able to do that. It's got to have a certain look to it, obviously, and it's got to have a certain combination of wins and losses, obviously. But I think that when I look at, first of all, I think they are going to shut Michigan down, to be honest with you. And we'll talk about this in the Michigan preview, I have significant concerns about Michigan's passing game, and I do not think you can go to Oklahoma with one hand tied behind your back against this defense and think you can win the game. So, but you have that. But yes, as you're saying, after that bye week, after Georgia, We've got Red River, a Kentucky that I think is going to be very frisky, a Mississippi State that a lot of people think is going to be frisky, South Carolina, maybe Florida has it figured out when they go to Gainesville in early November, and then Ole Miss and Missouri to round it out. Like that's the schedule, man. That is no weeks off starting in week 2.
Yeah. It's a gauntlet and they're good. So they're going to play a lot of really good games this year. They might be the team that you watch the most hours of as a college football fan this year, other than your own favorite team, because of all the good games that are on the slate. Richard, take us to Vanderbilt. Is this quarterback going to start?
Maybe. I would probably upgrade that to probably. But if he doesn't, it tells me something less about him and his skill and upside and ceiling, and more about just what this offense and system is. If Blaise Berlowitz is the starting quarterback over Jared Curtis, who was the 5-star freshman that flipped from Georgia, like, it's because Berlowitz has just been there. Like, he's been with these guys. He came with these guys from New Mexico. So he's been in there for a while. It's an offense that it's funky. It's got a specific amount of timing and precision that is necessary, especially in the run game. I don't necessarily think Jared Curtis is going to give you all. I mean, nobody is going to give you all the QB run game that Diego Pavia gave you. But I think you get the combination of Cedric Alexander at running back and Michaelan Young at running back in that room. You've got two really, really good backs that can offset what you lose in a Pavia-less run game. Junior Sherrill is back. Cole Spence is one of the depth tight ends that is back. I just don't really see much of a drop off from Vanderbilt. They are not going to fall off the face of the earth. Like, that's not going to happen. On defense, I more or less kind of like what they bring back. Bring back Martell Height on the back end. Like, they've got some players at Vanderbilt. There's going to be a solidity at Vanderbilt that I am optimistic about. They may be a little thin on the back end, but other than that, I don't think this is a drop to 5-7 football team.
I don't think so either. And I think that I don't know if you noted this, but they seem like they are not really suffering from the we can't portal people from here because of academics thing either. It's just like they're adding a lot of people from a lot of different schools. Maybe they're all just like unbelievable students. I have no idea. I have no way of knowing that. But like they're using the portal a lot. I mean, obviously they've been doing this to some extent. Like Diego Pavia did not come from Harvard when he went to Vanderbilt a couple years ago. But it's a big, big, big list of guys from lots of different types of colleges, which I think is kind of reassuring if you have had any worries about Vanderbilt, becoming Stanford in the bad way. Like, it's funny, 5-10 years ago, we were like, oh, could Vanderbilt be Stanford?
Yeah, positive.
Like, and that would have been like awesome. And now it's like, well, you want to make sure that they're not like stuck like Stanford is stuck. It doesn't seem to me like they are, which is a good sign, not just for this year, but for all future years. Elsewhere in the former SEC East, the Missouri Tigers rose here. Weird one, uncomfortable, but hopeful that things go okay. Amazing tailbacks, two of them. Ahmad Hardy, Jamal Roberts. Ahmad Hardy, the number 1, Jamal Roberts, the number 2, but played a lot last year and did really well. Probably, if things go the way we all would hope they go, best running back tandem in the SEC. The reason for the caveated language is that Ahmad Hardy got shot in the leg this offseason. Horribly traumatic. Won't just breeze past it because they can't just breeze past it. He has been medically cleared to play football, but is still in a conditioning buildup, as I understand it, as we record this, and is not going to have what you would call a normal season. I don't think. I hope, but I don't. That would seem kind of impossible. So they have Jamal Roberts while Ahmad Hardy works his way back. We hope for nothing but the best for him. I think they're probably going to be able to block for whoever's carrying the ball. Last year, they were one of these teams that kind of gave you hints that the running backs were doing a lot of the work. Like, they were 57th in yards before contact per carry nationally and 3rd in yards after contact, which that matched the eye test, right? Like that was Ahmad Hardy and Jamal Roberts doing quite a bit of the work. They got 3-ish offensive line starters back, though. One of them is Caden Green, the left tackle, who is a future NFL player probably, and who I strongly suspect would have had a lot of options if he wanted to play elsewhere this season. Kept him. It wasn't like a terrible line last year. It just wasn't quite worthy of those running backs. I thought this was interesting, Richard. Their new tight ends coach is Alex Atkins, who is the he's a former offensive line coach and offensive coordinator at Florida State. You hire an offensive line coach to be your tight ends coach. Probably tells me trying to get your tight ends to get their noses a little bit dirtier in run blocking.
Yeah.
They have Brett Norfleet, who's a good tight end, but he's more of the Jimmy Graham type of tight end than the Darnell Washington type of tight end, if you know what I mean.
They do. We'll say they do have a young Iowa tight end transfer in, which that's just I just noticed.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
That's just something I noticed. I think he was on this team last year, but in any event, there's some depth in the room there. I think at wide receiver they're actually pretty interesting. Like Caden Lee in from Ole Miss, Donrell Abude is going to be a sophomore on this team. Can play. I think is a young player who was impressing last year in camp and sort of made some waves as well. I'm not super high on Austin Simmons, to be honest with you. That's just
okay. So I'm wondering about that. I have him in. He's my bud. He got Wally Pips last year. The classic definition of the term. He didn't do anything wrong. He started at the very, very beginning of the year, played fine, got hurt. Trinidad Chambliss turned out to be Trinidad Chambliss. That was that.
They didn't even know he was going to be Trinidad Chambliss, by the way. So it's just one of those.
Last year at this time, because I remember it well, someone at Ole Miss who is no longer at Ole Miss was telling me, like, we love this guy.
Simmons,
like, they love
Trinidad.
Simmons.
Okay.
Simmons. Like he's also a baseball player, and so they were using the word makeup, which is how baseball scouts talk. They're just like great leader, great guy, like can't get him out of the film room, very talented. Like they were talking about him this person was talking about him in those ways to me. Like really glowingly, not like, oh, like we're not sure if he can play. And then he just got beat by a crazy good quarterback who would have been a first or second round NFL pick if he chose to be. So you're not that down with him. I'm curious why. Is it because it's hard to escape that he kind of is dropping down a tier in the conference and you just think when that happens, you're probably not that special? Or what is it that makes you not be super in on Austin Simmons?
I think it's a lot of that, to be honest with you. A lot of that.
But it's not his fault. I mean,
I get
Trinidad
Chambliss. I get it. And they rode with the hot hand, which was the right decision. Obviously the right decision. I don't know. There's just something about it. There's something about it. It's giving me pause. It's giving me
vibes.
pause.
It's vibes. You can just say it. It's vibes.
What's also giving me pause is the players they're replacing from last year's front. That's also giving me pause.
Defensive front. Yeah,
yes. Man. I loved what they had up front on defense last year with the edge rushers that they had. Zion Young and I can't remember.
Damon Wilson.
Damon Wilson, thank you. Who is at Miami right now?
Yep, it's NFL and Miami in those two cases. This is my thorn. It was the number 10 defense last year by SP Plus, and I think all 11 starters are like 10 and a half. What's a starter anyway these days? Are gone. The edge rushers in particular, just huge losses, going to be hard to replace. They have thought of this, like they aren't just sitting on their hands. They have Darius Smith, who had 20 plus pressures and 4 sacks as a bench guy last year. He's going to play a ton this year. Langdon Kitchen, similar, did not play a lot, generated a lot of pressures last year. I think those are looking like the 2 edge starters for them, but they have to replace basically everything, at least everything that wasn't nailed to the floor from that defense. And so you'd be pretty hard pressed to sell me that defense is not going to be way worse than the number 10 group in the country. I think a general downgrade, especially at pass rush, pretty likely here.
Yes, I would tend to agree there. And I think like, so you think the offense is going to get better and the defense is going to get worse?
Yeah, I guess I do. I mean, that sort of depends on Ahmad Hardy's recovery, how much more room the offense has to get better. But I think that if you made me pick, I'd rather have Austin Simmons than Bo Prabula, who was their quarterback last year.
I do tend to, until he got hurt, I do tend to agree.
Yeah. Also, they kept the other quarterback around too, Matt Zollers,
the one
who played
that played,
at the end of last year,
came in,
which is interesting that they didn't. It's interesting that he didn't just get the keys because he was a pretty touted recruit as well. Like he was a top 100 player nationally. I think that it seems like they would rather have him play as of his junior year than as of his sophomore year, if you read the tea leaves of them getting Simmons. But I think the offense could get a little better if Hardy is able to play for most of the season.
All right.
Tennessee, Richard.
Tennessee, indeed. I'm sort of at a loss with Tennessee, to be honest with you. Like, I just don't really know what to do with this program right now. I'm not making a fire Josh Heupel case. I'm not building toward that, to be honest with you. I'm just sort of like, is this an is what it is situation? Like, they think that, or I don't know if they think, but they are attempting to say Jim Knowles in at defensive coordinator is going to fix this. I have some questions, but last year's defense was not what you wanted it to be.
Nor was his defense last year.
Nor was his defense.
Penn State.
Yes. So I have some questions. Chaz Coleman out in the summer, who came with him, plenty of talent, but it didn't work out. Idris Farouk on the back end is going to be out for the season. Had a leg injury, it seems like in a scrimmage that was like pretty nasty. I like Amari Campbell, who came in with Jim Knowles from Penn State, but I don't know about Tennessee on defense. I guess they're going to get better on defense. I guess they're going to get better. I maybe I can't talk myself into Tennessee being worse on defense. And then you look at like the offense, they did not go shopping for this offense for the most part. Like, they kind of built this offense the way it's supposed to be done. Now, you've got some transfers in on the offensive line, not a ton, but a couple. And David Sanders in at left tackle, who you think that, all right, he is, on a trajectory to be a rock solid franchise left tackle. And you look around and you're like, you put those two things together and then you're like, all right, but then you got the quarterback situation, which is a real capital B quarterback battle. It appears, with George McIntyre and Faison Brandon still going on as of Thursday, August 20th. With an offense that is supposed to kind of be, they also have Martin Luther Staub here as QB3.
Yes.
Funny enough. This is an offense that should be drag and drop. And it hasn't been the last couple of years. And I think that some of that is the sport has caught up to it. So what is Josh Heupel's next iteration? Maybe it is pivoting to more of a defensive outfit, which is what I thought they could be after the 24 season when they made the playoff. And, the Ohio State thing happened, so it is what it is. But we also thought that team was fraudulent like the whole season. So I don't know where I'm at on Tennessee.
You more than me, but yeah. Are you worried at all still about their front office setup where they don't have the general manager? Because it sounds like they basically distribute general manager duties around, but they have not done what most of the SEC has done, where they sort of empowered one person adjacent to the head coach.
Yeah, look,
to do a lot of that work.
Georgia doesn't do it either. You know what I mean?
Also, and Indiana doesn't do it. Indiana doesn't do it, and that's working fine.
Yeah.
I just know that people have sort of asked questions about this because you've mentioned it on the show.
Yes. It's a thing. And I think it's going to become more of a thing if this team doesn't deliver, basically. But then you look at it and you're like, double-digit wins are just about 3 years in a row. Maybe it just is bumping your head on the ceiling for Tennessee, and that doesn't mean go get another guy. I don't know.
No. I think I said this when we were wrapping up last season. It's okay. It has to be okay in a time of parity in the Power 2 for good programs to occasionally put up 8 and 4s.
Yeah.
Not all good. Like, Ohio State can't put up 8 and 4s. Georgia probably can't put up 8 and 4s. And we can't be like, that's okay. Texas probably shouldn't put up 8 and 4s, but like Tennessee, Oklahoma, A&M, Michigan.
Yeah.
They're going to put up some 8 and 4s.
Yeah. Someone has to be sixth in this conference.
Yeah. Like it's just going to happen now that these leagues have this many teams and this many
9 game schedule.
Hard games. Yeah. It's just going to happen. I think that Faison Brandon let me rephrase this. I know that Tennessee fans want Faison Brandon to be the guy. And I suspect that he's a level of investment that Tennessee would like him sooner or later to be the guy. But I also think they don't want to do too much too quick.
But my thing is, this is an offense that you should be able to, but whatever.
Yeah, it's a fair question. All right, Richard, we go to Baton Rouge. Despite this being maybe the most covered single team offseason ever in the history of this sport, we're still playing a little bit of darts with LSU. Before I get into this, I would pitch you this. I think a pretty good guide for what this might be is like Lincoln Riley's first year at USC, though a little bit less quarterback driven, with Sam Leavitt versus Caleb Williams. USC was really good that year. They lost the Pac-12 championship game, fell apart in the second half against Utah, and so they didn't make the playoff. And then things went very poorly for a little time after that. But I think that's about the thing to look at here. Like, I think they're going to have 8 to 10 wins. I think they're going to be in it until the last moments of the regular season, maybe in it later if things go well. It's borderline. This is one of a handful of teams that I think could go 9-3 and still make the playoff, depending on which 3. But overall, goes without saying that it is a rose to hire the best coach on the market and then give him perhaps the most money in the country. So I think that's a rose. I'll do an on-field rose. They did not forget the offensive line, my friend.
No, they didn't. No, they did not.
They did not forget the offensive line. I think they looked at what Texas Tech did last year and thought, you know what? Good idea.
It was the problem last year. Like, it's why you beat Florida by 1 possession, even though you got 5 turnovers. And it's the reason why Louisiana Tech,
that was
it's
hilarious.
It's the reason why Louisiana Tech kind of pushed you around up front in a game that was a whole lot harder than it needed to be.
Yeah, they did. I don't think that's going to be happening in their non-conference this year, including against Clemson. And that's Clemson with a good defensive front, or at least a pretty good defensive front. Jordan Seaton, offensive tackle, left tackle. He's what you want. He's what you sketch out if you draw a top 15 NFL pick left tackle. They have him now from Colorado. Aliu Ba from Maryland, going to play guard. Really the only like star player that Maryland lost from last year's team. He comes to LSU now and is going to be really, really good in the middle of that line. This is actually kind of in a way that will not comfort LSU fans. It kind of reminds me of Brian Kelly's first year where they just immediately figured out both tackle spots with the 2 freshmen, except they did it via the portal this year with a more distributed ad. I think they're going to have a really good offensive line right away. You need that because, well, you need that in general. And also Sam Leavitt's medical history is not the most clean. He's been hurt a fair time or two in his career. So you have to keep him good. Another rose is that, as you would guess, they have wide receivers and tight ends just kind of coming out the rectum right now. Like Trey'Dez Green is back. He's like, probably 6'9", 6'10", tight end who catches everything. Pick your favorite of like 9 portal receivers. Someone is going to be great. Probably 2 or 3 or 4. Jace Brown from Kansas State, maybe my favorite of that crew. But like, what are the chances that a couple of these guys are not awesome?
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, they're just They're just going to have it like that at wide receiver and tight end. My bud is that we are seeing, I think, the blossoming of a new generation of really good LSU DBs. Some of this is
we haven't talked about the Jaden Daniels thing. I don't think.
No, sure. We can do this very quickly. But so they lost AJ Halsey and Mansour Delane, who were good players.
Who were great players last year. Yes.
Yeah. Delane was only there for, I think, 1 year.
Halsey too. Halsey transferred in from Houston. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. DJ Pickett is now very famous this week because of his number, which is the number 5. The Jaden Daniels fight with LSU is pretty funny in a lot of ways. And, we can talk about this. Can we all now be adults, including LSU fans, about the Jaden Daniels Heisman season? Is that now safe ground for us to walk without LSU
guess
fans
it
getting
is
mad at us?
I guess
we weren't allowed to really talk about that a few years ago because LSU fans were like, you're not appreciating him. Well, it's like, maybe now we're allowed. It was a great season. But it's like when Justin Morneau won the American League MVP in Major League Baseball in the 2000s. It's cool. Like, it was well deserved. But anyway, the reason that whole thing happened, like, why would LSU care about DJ Pickett getting the number he wants if not for, like, DJ Pickett's really, really good? That's how we bring it back to the preview.
I absolutely, like, honestly, I'm on Lane's side here. Like, who the hell are you to tell me I can't give this kid the number? I didn't promise it to you. That was the last guy. And I don't want this guy to go to Miami. So, I'll give him the number.
I think we should do fewer number retirements in general.
I think retiring numbers in college is logistically dumb.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. I saw Matt Leinart talking about this recently at USC. He's like, no one will ever get my number at USC unless it's like my kid or like some family member. And it's like, on the one hand, like, okay, fine. Like, I understand why you feel like you deserve that. But like just because Reggie Bush was really, really good, USC can't have a number 11 forever, ever again.
Or 5. Yeah. Like, it's
number 5 is fine, but like,
5 is Reggie Bush's number.
They can't even have Reggie Bush's quarterback's number ever be worn again because Reggie Bush existed in his time.
Yeah, logistically, you have 100 numerals, including 0. You have over 100 players. That doesn't, and a lot of the skill guys want single digits because of the swag.
I believe to be specific, you have 101 numerals, including 0.
No, because you don't have 100. Hold on. You don't have 100. You can't give out number 100. So it's 99 plus 0.
Oh, so true. Although you do so true. And you can't do 00 either, can you?
No, you can't do 00.
All right, you got me. Me.
So you can't that's all you have.
You're right. You can't do 100.
So you've got to double up. And you've got to double. By the way, but in the 100th year of college football, whenever that was, 50 odd years ago, they actually did give out number 100. There, if you look this up, there are some pictures that you can find of players wearing the number 100. It's kind of funny. In any event, logistically, you're going to double up. We know that all the skill players want the swaggy single digits. Pickett, DJ, see that as the example. So you're doubling up and all that kind of stuff. Like, it doesn't make sense to me how you take, especially single digits, out of the rotation. It doesn't make sense. And then at LSU, you also have, as we know, the factor of you're going to take 5 and 9 out of the equation because 9 was better than 5, and 9 actually did the thing you wanted to do, which is win the fucking national championship.
Didn't Daniels or his camp sort of leak something that was like, his camp said something to the effect of that they're treating him differently than they treated Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Which, like, yeah, man. Like, yeah, they are doing that. Yeah. Like, if I walked into a bar, I wouldn't expect to be greeted like Lee Corso. Like, I feel like we've done a good job on this show, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah, it's just, they're not the same thing. Yes. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
DJ Pickett is really good.
Also, LSU, I don't know if you've noticed, LSU is rubbing Jaden Daniels' face in it, by the way, on social. Like, they are very, very intentionally tweeting out his highlights, like from practice and scrimmages. Like, it is very funny the way this is going. It is just such a miss by Jaden Daniels and his camp, the way that they did this. Just
bad advice or something, or bad thought by him. I don't know. But either way, I hope this is a move towards less memorializing of people via retired jersey numbers, especially when they're alive. Honorifics for people who are living in these ways, they can get dicey. They can get dicey real quick. in a lot of ways. But DJ Pickett's great, could be an All-American corner. They already had a couple of good safeties back, and then they added Ty Benefield from Boise State, who I did not realize they had added until preview prep. I just assumed he was out of eligibility and was in the NFL, but no, he is here at LSU. I think the back end of this defense is going to be great. My thorn is that I think much like the early Lincoln Riley days at USC, I think there's a chance that they get pushed around a little bit on the interior of the defensive line because of how many true freshmen are going to be involved there for them. It seems like it's going to be at least 2, like proper defensive tackles who are playing there for them, who were in high school last year. Lamar Brown is like a very versatile defensive lineman who it sounds like might play a little bit more 3-tech end, but we'll see what they do. But they just have a lot of youth, very highly touted youth, like youth that cost money, youth that had a lot of stars next to their names that are going to play on that defensive line. And that can just go the way that it can go. It can also go fine. Like I mentioned, the offensive line in Kelly's first year, they figured it out with true freshmen right away. It can go totally fine. But I think LSU is a little not worried, but maybe mindful of this because they added interior defensive linemen from Auburn, Clemson, another 1 or 2 elsewhere down that roster. Like they have a cavalry in place, but I think they're going to be leaning a lot on pretty green people. And if you're looking for a roster weakness for this year, that would probably be where I would find it.
As always, shout out to our friends at Home Field, Alex.
Indeed, Richard. This is a thrilling time of year for our partners at Home Field. You can find them at homefieldapparel.com. I am in a particularly home fieldy mood right now because we are blessed by the new Home Field Stadium polos that I've been talking about for weeks on the show. But if you're not a polo person, though I hope you are, there are many other wonderful new wares at homefieldapparel.com. Game day hats, lots of different styles of hat, different tees, different hoodies, different long sleeve tees. It is just a veritable potpourri of college sports apparel right now at homefieldapparel.com. This is a wonderful time of the year to get yourself outfitted as we head into a new college football season. And if you are a fan of a team in the SEC, your team is on offer at homefieldapparel.com. Just go to their schools drop down and you will be able to easily find it. Thanks so much to Home Field for their ongoing support of everything that we do here at Split Zone Duo. Richard, take us to Lexington.
This is a team that I am way more optimistic on than I probably should be. I look at this roster, at least on offense, and I think we might have some action here. Like CJ Baxter at running back in, Nick Anderson at wide receiver in, Lance Hurd at left tackle in. Kenny Minchie's going to be the quarterback. That's a name you may remember. I'm kind of picking up what Will Stein's putting down here. I'm interested. I think they can be really, really frisky in the SEC in this first year. They're flipping the identity. Because I don't know what they're doing on defense, boy. Like, defense is... They added a pair of Florida defensive backs, and then they went... They believe in their scouting. Let's say that. They believe in their scouting. Because they got a Myquise Humphrey Grace comes in from South Dakota. They got a player in from Western Carolina. It's going to be the other corner. Like, they went deep on the scouting. So let's see if that one pays off on the defensive side of the ball. But I think on offense, you might want to watch out. Like, Kentucky may get somebody this season. Seriously. And not in the like Mark Stoops way, where it was like the game is going to be like 13-7 and nobody's going to have a good time.
We are talking about them a lot differently than we were at this time a year ago. Much more excited about them. You mentioned the defensive scouting that they're doing. Do we have a real read on Kenny Minchie?
Not really. But he can run, though, right?
Right. I kind of think with Kenny Minchie, we're all doing like a very, in multiple ways, sort of a stereotypical, it might be fine with him. Like Notre Dame guy, didn't beat out CJ Carr. Okay, now he's here. He's like, he certainly looks the part. Like, he's built like an athlete. There's definitely a bit of like black quarterback. Oh, so he can run type of thing. But like, can he really? I'm not sure, actually.
I mean, look, Will Stein, like with the offense, Will Stein has proven that he can get the most out of a quarterback, frankly, like whether they can run or not. Like Dylan Gabriel, Bo Nix, like this offense has, it's weird because I think the offense is actually kind of complex because I keep picking up that like some Oregon players struggled to pick it up. So I like there's some of that concerned, but I do know Will Stein's pretty good at pressing the right buttons, man.
This is a year one. There are probably no more year zeros in this league, but I think they're going to be a much more fun sort of bad than they were last year. Remember last year we were talking about this team in like apocalyptic terms on the preview,
and then they almost beat Texas.
I mean, they did almost beat Texas, but I think this will be a more exciting year, a much more interesting football product to watch. I don't think I'm as high on them as you are, but hey, that's why we can have differences of opinion in this
also,
nation.
Let me talk about what high sort of is. High is high is like I think this team, I don't know about squarely going bowling, but I think this team bowls. And I think this team definitely upsets somebody pretty serious. That's a high. That I think that's what high means. Considering I think the SP plus average wins on this team, I think it's like 4. Pretty damn high.
Richard, let's keep it with you for a second here and go to Gainesville, Florida.
Indeed, the new man in charge, John Summerall. This Florida team is weird to me. I think it is the best group of skill players in the conference. Jaden Ball's damn near the best running back in the conference outside of Ahmad Hardy, and obviously what you mentioned about Ahmad Hardy exists and is going to be the big question mark about him. But when you've got a healthy Dallas Wilson, Eric Singleton in from Auburn / Georgia Tech, and then Vernell Brown, VB3, who was absolutely explosive play waiting to happen at wide receiver, they are deep at the skill position. Where what's not figured out right now is the quarterback situation. I think if you have an Aaron Philo who comes in with Buster Faulkner from Georgia Tech, and he doesn't have the job by the scruff of the neck coming out of spring, and it's August 20th, and he doesn't really have the job yet, and you talk to some people around there, and they're like, talk to somebody who was like, it's like Graham Mertz with some wheels is the player that we're looking at. All right. A lot of people have liked Tramel Jones at Florida. And it's the situation where like Tramel Jones to me is the classic backup quarterback is the most popular player on a team situation.
Sure.
If he was that good, he'd have the job situation to me. I think you've lost too many really good pieces from both the offensive line and I think the defense in general. However, like Jaden Woods is the bud. Like you're going to learn Jaden Woods' name at edge for Florida. He is a player now. And I think Florida fans can really be excited about him. They already are. Miles Graham, near and dear to my heart, obviously, because of where he's from and where he played high school football, my high school, my hometown. And then, okay, you think you're going to get the best version of Kamani McLean. You like Aaron Childs at linebacker. I think they got a pretty decent linebacker core overall. I think there's going to be a core competency that John Summerall is going to bring that the last guy never found. All right. But I don't know that a dark horse playoff team, which is what some people are saying about Florida, to me is kind of crazy.
Yeah. I don't see that, but I guess if I did, it wouldn't be a dark horse, would it? I think that these guys are doing the probably prudent thing that, Arkansas is definitely doing. I think Kentucky is doing. I think the next school we're talking about, Auburn, is doing, even though that's a little bit different because it's an existing relationship. But where if you're going to splash a bunch of cash in your first year and it's a pretty clear rebuild, you probably shouldn't do it on quarterback unless you have tons of cash. See LSU, for example. Does it seem reasonable to you to say that Florida is trying to build more foundationally elsewhere on the roster, particularly trenches, than by paying a lot for a quarterback. Because I can't imagine that Philo costs that much.
No, and you're also, yes. And I think they're also like, they're not one of the SEC's biggest spenders. I don't Florida's not a bottom half spender in the SEC, I don't think, but they're not like an upper middle class spender in the SEC either. Like there are 6 or 7 teams I think that I can name off the top of my head that are spending more on a roster, and not just like $500,000 more. I mean like more on the roster. So this is not a chips in like year one for Florida either. Let's see it. I mean, they have, I mean, that FAU game week 1 is going to be, I think, annoying in sort of that same way that New Mexico game, I think, is going to be annoying for Oklahoma. Like, you're going to win. It's going to be a little annoying. You want to, come out on the front foot, night game, home game, and blow the doors off of them. But I think FAU is going to be a little frisky for like the first 25 minutes of that game. They also, I think they have a schedule that lets them kind of maybe, like, they could start 6-0. They really could. And then you're thinking I think you're thinking some things about Florida at that point in time that may not prove to be true by the end of the season.
September Maryland, a September and October Maryland,
yes,
possibly.
Yes, September Florida.
Man, starting 6-0 would be.
You think it's a stretch?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes,
all right.
I do.
All right. Auburn, Ole Miss, Missouri, Carolina.
Basically, I think it would be could, but I think you're overstating probabilities here. They could win all those games because Ole Miss is at home, but I would probably be targeting 4-2.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
Yeah. And then Auburn.
Then it gets it gets real.
Yeah.
Then it gets
at
real.
Texas, by Georgia, Oklahoma. So the middle part of that slate is the hardest part. Also, they might get to play an interim coached Florida State
Absolutely.
at the end of the year.
Zombie
or perhaps,
Florida State into
I mean, it could be like a keyword watch Florida State by the end of this year if things are going that way.
By the way, Florida, Georgia in Atlanta this year, by the way. Don't like it.
All right, let's go to Auburn, Alabama. Couple roses here. I'll do one very quickly. Xavier Atkins, linebacker, just a star. Great player. What do you want your middle linebacker to be? He pretty much is that player. Great foundation of the defense. Settled. Perfect. Kept him. Other rows. Can you map out a way where Byron Brown, no matter what you think of him, is not the best Auburn quarterback since Bo Nix or Jarrett Stidham?
Who am I picking through?
I mean, you're talking through, aside from like arguably late stage Bo Nix at Auburn. You're picking through TJ Finley, Robbie Ashford, Peyton Thorne.
Yeah, all right. This is a default situation.
Jackson
is
Arnold.
What it is.
Yeah, but the point is that it's been like 5-6 years since Auburn has had anything at this position, and Byron Brown he's really fun. You can't even say that about any of the other quarterbacks that Auburn has had over this time period. He's going to do a few things over the course of the season that are going to make you say wow in a really good way. He will probably do a decent number of things that will make you say wow in a bad way.
Yes.
I don't think he's a future NFL player. I think that, on the one hand, people, not at quarterback anyway, I think people are probably overstating the degree to which the weird throwing motion is a problem for him. This went very viral during spring ball. Oh, okay. Tell us about it.
I don't know. Auburn is making the case, basically, that USF was an SEC offense last year. Like, that's the case that they are making. And I'm not I guess I just have to see it. I guess I just have to see it.
Sure. This is liable to be a quarterback that people get too excited about because of what Auburn has
Because
had
of
at
the
that
measurables
position
and the size.
previously. And right, like
I mean,
giant
you chiseled
dude,
the fucking guy out of granite.
runs
Like,
both through a wall and runs really fast and hard, which is sort of the same thing if you think about velocity and force, but a little, you know what I mean? Can run between the tackles, can run around people, and throws the ball really hard. I get the excitement with that and where Auburn's been at quarterback. I don't think it's going to be the technically cleanest thing you've ever seen, but he's going to do some great things would be my thought for this team, and probably some pretty lousy things too. But it's like kind of a perfect year one quarterback because it's enough to be really excited about. And because it's an existing relationship with Alex Golish and because he's not this good, like my guess is that it was not a bank buster to bring him there. Not that I'm saying it was cheap to get an SEC quarterback, but
I also think overall, like Auburn might not, I don't know, need to pass is the right way to say it, but like they're in a good running back room, man. They're a really good running back room. And if you're going to combine, so it's Jeremiah Cobb who comes back, Omar Mapson, who impressed some folks last year, and then Bryson Washington from Baylor. Like there are some interesting players there for Auburn. So I'm really interested in just how this looks. Because like I said, the whole damn wide receiver room is USF players.
Yep. That's my bud. It's like in Moneyball with Jason Giambi. Like we can't get another Cam Coleman, but we can maybe replace him in the aggregate, which is made easier by Auburn having this mystical flattening effect on wide receiver stats. They have not had a 1,000-yard receiver in the century that we are currently in. Like, I think you could devise a world where Auburn's overall passing game numbers do not look any worse this year than they did last. In part because of the wide receivers and like the depth of the group. Keyshawn Singleton, really good. These are all USF guys. Chaz Nimrod, burner, really fast. Jeremiah Koger is a sophomore, one of a couple who had a really good debut last year. Christian Neptune was another. I don't know how they're going to order these guys. Like, I think there's like a reasonably clear top three, with Singleton, Nimrod, and Koger. But like, you're right that they are just kind of saying like, we think USF's offense last year was an SEC offense. That pretty much is like the bet here. And Alex Golish might have reason to believe that. Like he has coached good SEC offenses at Tennessee.
Yeah.
Does he have the level of credibility that you would trust him on this? I don't know. Your mileage might vary, but I don't think they're doomed to have a bad offense this year. It's very, very high variance, a lot of different outcomes on the table. My thorn, I was reading the great Justin Ferguson of the Auburn Observer newsletter, auburnobserver.com. I think you have to worry about their corners quite a bit. There's a chance of some burnings going on there. They lost like a couple of cornerbacks to other SEC destinations, Kayan Lee, Jay Crawford. Rayon Strader was here last year. Good player who came from Miami of Ohio. He is now at Pitt, which is interesting. I tend to think that is probably a case where Auburn wasn't like devastated to lose someone if that's where he winds up. But I clocked that because I was pretty excited when Pitt got him. Not a lot of proven depth and production at the positions where you cover other teams' wide receivers. And that's a liability. Could make things ugly as this thing goes on.
All right, onwards to Mississippi State, who has sort of what everybody is saying is, I think, one of the most boom cases in the entire conference with Kamario Taylor at quarterback. Absolute explosive play waiting to happen, particularly with his legs. Watch out. I mean, he can really, really scoot. Your pal Fluff Bothwell at running back still here. So, all right, they're going to score points, I think, and they're going to be fun in that way. Defense, we'll see. I think also Jaden Rashada's QB3 on this team right now, which, okay. AJ Swan was on this team last year, right? No. AJ Swan
Where is AJ Swan? Where is AJ Swan at any given time?
Yeah.
Really?
AJ
he was
Swan,
at App State, wasn't he?
He was at App State. Okay. Yeah. AJ Swan is on this team right now, and Jaden Rashada is QB3. So it's you're really weird stuff down there in Starkville. I think Anthony Evans can go in the slot. Like I said, I think this team is going to be pretty fun, pretty combustible. They are going to score. Will they defend? Probably not. So, all right. Like you remember that Arizona State game last year, for instance, as we all do, that was a party. I think if you have a Mississippi State team that can score 40 and give up 40 and is something that I want to watch on the SEC network, like B game, like success. I don't know if that means success for Jeff Lebby, but success for me as the football enjoyer.
Kelly Jones is a cornerback for this team who State's media guide says allowed 11 catches last year. Best among SEC cornerbacks. That's something.
I think it was also, I think it's Isaac Smith, who is back, is a corner that they really like as well. Yeah.
Yeah, they have some pieces. I'm excited to watch Kamario Taylor. He's second team All-SEC. Their fans kind of gently corrected us from the offseason vibe check. Coming into the offseason, like before spring, it looked like they might have sort of a little bit of a battle, a bit of uncertainty. Like Taylor had played a bit last year, but I had kind of missed as the offseason went on how excited they are about him. And
I asked a couple people and they're like, it's real.
Yeah, so just kind of a miss on my part, on our part, but I think he has my attention. I'm looking forward to watching him play. Richard, the South Carolina Gamecocks.
I mean,
dead cat bounce?
I don't know, man. You have your star players, except for one of them who doesn't seem like he's going to be ready to go. So much so that you went and got Whit Weeks from the portal's not the word for it, because he played in a preseason game last week. Whit Weeks. Jesus Christ. Weeks. Jack Piper. Excuse me.
Yes.
Whit Weeks. Sorry, I got my LSU whites mixed up there.
I mean, that is a they all look alike.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, he played. But Jack Piper played in a game for the Bucks last week, preseason game for the Bucks last week, and then got a magical temporary restraining order, as many college athletes are wont to do. At least for now, it appears that he will be playing for South Carolina, which they will need because it seems like Dylan Stewart is hurt, at least banged up enough to where he will not start the season for Carolina.
Are you serious? This is happening?
Yeah. He's suing to come back.
But I didn't see that he was actually on the team yet.
I don't know if it's officially on the team, but it seems like he was.
I don't think he's officially. Let's see. He was granted he for now can pursue a 5th year of eligibility in a under a temporary restraining order. We're recording this August 20th. We'll see if he's on a college football team this year. It's also late. I have read that there are a lot of college front offices that are kind of picking through like NFL camp waiver wires right now to see if someone could come and play for them. Yeah.
I also man, the Dylan Stewart thing, like he's got a back. And I don't love that. He's got a back that's like still bothering him to the point where he does not seem like he will be ready for week 1. I believe the great Chris Lowe reported that. I think it's last night as we record this.
Dude.
Not awesome.
Also, dude, they go and get Jacarius Peak to address like the most pressing problem, which is Lenoris Sellers is going to get killed out here. He's the left tackle. I think he's going to play on the left side. Really good offensive tackle, future NFL player. And he's not healthy in fall camp. I mean, I wonder. They also have like multiple receivers who are already out for the season in fall camp.
And they're also they're also trying to do the offense go burr situation. When you add Nitro Tuggle to the Nick Harbor of it all,
Mhm.
Like you're trying to do business a certain way on offense.
Yes.
I am I am interesting. Oh, and you add a Kendall Browse to the situation as well as offensive coordinator.
Embarrassing still, by the way. Reeks of desperation, no matter how many of our industry colleagues try to rehabilitate his daddy, as they have been doing of late. Whatever. Like, hiring Kendall Browse is the kind of thing you do probably before you get fired.
Sure. And I am not trying to speak to the morality of it all. I'm actually strictly speaking to the football of it all. Like, you're trying to do business a certain way on offense when you put those two things together. But okay, Bakari Swain is back. Brownlow Dindy is back up front.
Oh, Swain is sweet. That's the return man. Yes. He's a blast. He's like the one thing that you could point to their season last year. It was like, oh, that wasn't terrible. It was him.
Yeah. So I don't know. Let's see it with Carolina, I guess.
The Arkansas Razorbacks coming in last here on this preview.
Reverse standing order, not reverse standing order here, I don't think.
The rose here is that they clearly, to some extent, have piled up some money for this thing in a way that they were not doing before. Does it even get them into the middle class of the SEC? Probably not. Does it get them more into the mix of the lower middle class and kind of less of an outlier at the bottom? Yeah, I think probably. They have that going for them. They are trying to give Ryan Silverfield the tools that he would need to do something respectable here. The defense should be better. They were 99th in SP Plus last year, which is pretty hard to do for an SEC. I think that they are likely to just have a few hits out of a kind of throw it at the wall circumstance. Like, they have a lot of former 4-star defensive line guys who, for whatever reason, didn't work out at a bunch of different schools. They now play for Arkansas. Numbers game. A couple of these guys have to play. A couple of them probably going to be pretty productive. The star here is Quincy Rhodes, who's a defensive end, had 8 sacks, had 15.5 tackles for loss last year. They kept him. He wears, I believe, 97 and could be the best player on this team. My bud here is an interesting one to me anyway. Chris Marshall, wide receiver.
You were going to bring him up. I knew it.
This
not even that I disagree. I just need to bring him up.
So this is such a classic college football story. The dude is 6'3", 213. If you saw him coming off the bus or on the right day in gameplay, you would think this guy is an NFL receiver, like probably a day 1 or day 2 pick NFL receiver. All the talent in the world, and he's big. Like, can out muscle you and go and catch the football. Last year, he played almost a full season at Boise State, but he was sat down for just 1 game on a suspension for undisclosed disciplinary reasons. Spencer Danielson at Boise referenced, quote, how you interact with players and coaches, end quote, when he announced that they were sitting him down. Prior to that, he was at A&M and he was at Ole Miss. He did not last either of those places. Ole Miss was the second one of those. A&M was also a disciplinary thing of some kind, we are led to believe. And then Ole Miss was a dismissal from the team, straight up. Now, this is kind of a last chance you type of situation for Arkansas, for him at Arkansas. He's like the star of fall camp. Like, people are just raving about what he's doing at fall camp. He is dominating Arkansas practice and scrimmages. And there's a story that I've heard from a friend of our show who was really involved in the donor community for an SEC basketball program, who once told me, and I think told you too, that he was sitting in a meeting with an SEC basketball coach early in this coach's tenure, like first year. And the basketball coach goes to the donors and is like, fellas, I'm going to bring in some bad dudes this year, and I need you to be okay with it. And everyone was okay with it. And that coach went on to a very successful run at that school. I am not saying, to be clear, that Chris Marshall is a bad dude at all. I don't know. I'm saying that Chris Marshall is being afforded a shot here, despite like a lot of issues at a lot of different programs, because this dude can fucking play. Like, if they get it right, like if they get the, whatever the off-field or character thing is, like, right, like if they get it settled, he could be great. Will they be able to like get that kind of on the tracks for an entire season without problems? I don't know, but it's the kind of thing you do when you're Arkansas and it's 2026.
Yeah. Sutton Smith in, by the way, with Silverfield from Memphis. Arkansas fans will remember him. And I'm interested to see how that one goes as well. For Arkansas, it's year one. I don't know. It's a year one. Nobody's excited. Arkansas is a team that really needs to play games because, like, I'm seeing headlines like Ryan Silverfield says he has aura around here. Like, man, we got to kick a ball down in Fayetteville. Holy cow.
We do. I have the quarterback situation as a thorn as well. Not a settled battle as we record this on the 20th, which is never really what you want. It's KJ Jackson, who's been around Arkansas, and it's AJ Hill, who came over with Silverfield from Memphis. Probably going to be bottom handful quarterback play. Yeah, it's a year one. They're going to have a hard time, but maybe Chris Marshall will do some things that make it onto college football final and that generate some pub for this program. Because if they get him right, he could be really, really good. Richard, awards time. Your split zone duo preseason dude of the year.
Cam Coleman. I think Cam Coleman is going to go nuts. Absolutely nuts for Texas this year.
I'm taking Xavier Atkins on defense and Jordan Seaton on offense. Auburn, LSU, a couple really good players. Pretty much a sure thing in both cases.
Well, I was going to go. It's funny. On defense, I was going to go with Dylan Stewart, obviously, to kind of take the cheese there, and then it didn't work. I will just go ahead and take Jaden Woods. I think Jaden Woods is going to be special for Florida on the edge.
Yep. Richard, your coach who will not be here next year. Last year, you took Sam Pittman. That was a direct hit for you. I gave sort of a meandering answer, and I was basically hedging between a lot of things. What I wound up doing is answering it in a creative way. I said that there's a 60 to 70% chance that any of these guys, Billy Napier, Brian Kelly, Brent Venables, Hugh Freeze, will be fine. But the math would tell us that at least one of those guys would have a bad year and be gone. Three of the four wound up being gone. So I kind of cheated last year and got a hit, and you just were correct on Sam Pittman, who is not going to be a head coach in the SEC next year.
I'm going to swing for the fences here and go to the 40 acres. Sark. Because I think there's two ways this can go. I think, first of all, if they miss the playoff, I think they might just outright fire him. If you just put 2 and 2 together on what that would look like, I think that's going to be done. But if it hits and we all kind of ride into the sunset here, and you're, I don't know, pick your team. I guess it can't be the Dolphins. And I guess it can't really be the Falcons. Can it be?
They couldn't do that again. Don't do that to Steven. Don't do that.
So with Kevin Stefanski. But like, why wouldn't you try to package deal Arch and Sark if you have the first pick in the NFL draft?
Dude.
Like
fellas, I'd take you in Pittsburgh in a heartbeat.
Problem is, yeah, and Arizona has a new coach. Who's the Jets? Better watch out. Aaron could get rid of Aaron Glenn. Cleveland, how long are we doing that?
If the Jets have the first pick, then, I mean, you got to kick Archie Manning into action and do something about that.
We can't have that, can we? I don't think Carolina's going to be that bad, but I don't know. I'm just saying the NFL Sark thing, if it's just a last dance and we all ride into the sunset, I could see it. I could see it.
I'm taking Shane Beamer because the saving graces of this program are, with the exception of Lenora Sellers, seemingly all hurt before the season. And I'd be surprised if this went the way that it could. It could because they have the stars, but with several of them not being healthy, I don't feel good about the situation at South Carolina. Richard, the minority coach of the week of the year in an interesting schematic spot. My understanding is that this is not a predictor of success.
No, it is not. Neither is it a portender, my old friend. It is simply just taking a minority coach in a certain schematic spot and saying, that's interesting. Holman Wiggins, offensive coordinator for Texas A&M. That is, again, I said my piece earlier in the show about A&M. Colin Klein leaving is why the optimism is waning for me for A&M on offense. What you got, I think, is the answer. Wiggins has been around the SEC, a name that a lot of people may recognize. Now he's got to step up, and I'm really interested in how this is going to go.
Richard, your favorite game of the year in this conference, ideally something other than, Texas, Georgia or whatever, or, but give me a low-key game of the year in this conference. There's nothing really low-key about this league anymore.
No, I mean, it really is a take your pick regarding Oklahoma's schedule. Like, Oklahoma has so many just sick games on its schedule, like we talked about when we rolled it down. I do think, though, that when you look at it and you go to November and you say Oklahoma, Ole Miss, similar to what it was last year, to be honest with you, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, it's November 14th. That is a game, and then A&M the next week. Like, that's a game where when you talk about edgewise SEC playoff cases, those get decided in that, like, little corner of the conference in those 2 weeks.
I'm kind of breaking my own rule, but I'm taking Texas at A&M because I'd like to game out with you where things go if A&M loses to drop to either 8-4 or 9-3 and just narrowly misses the playoff, and Mike Elko is 0-3 against Texas. They're not firing him, but
no.
But where does that leave him? Where does that leave him?
Displeased. A lot of displeased people. And then you wonder if you're throwing some money at it next January.
Yeah, I would just like to see what happens if Texas wins in College Station again, especially even if it doesn't cost them a playoff spot, but there's obviously a real chance that it would. Like, you couldn't beat Texas even in the year where Texas missed out, where Texas wasn't what it was supposed to be. What happens if you drop to 0-3 in the return of this rivalry? Interesting narrative ball comes into play in that case. All right, Richard, any closing thoughts on the Southeastern Conference?
I'm sure that we'll all have a nice, sane year of Southeastern Conference football with normal takes and non-apocalyptic decisions after a result goes one way or the other. Sure.
Can't wait. One more conference preview to go, folks.